Have you noticed how certain cultural conflicts transcend their surface dynamics to become profound rituals of transformation? I've been captured watching the Kendrick Lamar and Drake battle evolve from typical rap rivalry into something far more significant, a public ceremony of ego death and rebirth playing out on the global stage. What fascinates me isn't just the lyrical bars or streaming numbers, but how this conflict reveals deeper patterns in our collective consciousness. Some view it as mere entertainment, others as a necessary purification of hip-hop culture, and still others as an archetypal hero's journey unfolding before our eyes. Today, we're exploring the Kendrick Drake rivalry not as a simple celebrity drama, but as a consciousness ritual revealing profound truths about identity transformation, creative evolution, and the necessary role of conflict in spiritual growth. By examining this battle through multiple perspectives and moving beyond surface level analysis, we can gain extraordinary insights into how consciousness evolves through creative confrontation. Let's dive into what this epic clash reveals about the transformative power of artistic conflict and the evolutionary pressures reshaping not just two artists, but culture itself. How does this conflict embody ancient archetypal patterns of transformation? The Kendrick Drake battle represents a fascinating manifestation of archetypal patterns that have shaped human consciousness for millennia. This isn't merely a rap beef, it's a hero's journey playing out through modern mythology. Think of consciousness as expressing itself through recurring archetypal patterns, the same fundamental dramas humanity has enacted throughout history. What makes this conflict so captivating is how perfectly it embodies these ancient patterns. Notice the classic archetypal roles: Drake as the established king, commercially dominant, territorially secure, ruling the kingdom he's built; Kendrick as the revolutionary challenger, the truth teller, the purifier, and the one who exposes contradictions in the existing order. These aren't just marketing positions, but consciousness archetypes that resonate deeply with our collective psyche. What's most revealing is how their conflict follows the classic hero's journey structure. The call to battle Kendrick features on Like That and Euphoria, crossing the threshold into direct confrontation, Not Like Us. The ordeal of public judgment and the potential for transformation through conflict. For both artists, this represents the death-rebirth cycle where old identities must die for new ones to emerge. I've observed how audiences instinctively recognize these archetypal dimensions, which explains why the battle generates such intense emotional investment. We're not just watching entertainment. We're witnessing a modern enactment of ancient consciousness patterns where kings are challenged, truths are spoken, and now orders emerge through creative destruction. The archetypal lens reveals why the conflict reveals so much larger than the individuals involved. It's tapping into timeless patterns of transformation that have shaped human consciousness throughout history, making it both personally compelling and collectively significant. How are both artists forcing each other to confront disowned aspects of themselves? The Kendrick Drake battle demonstrates the profound shadow work that artistic conflict can initiate. Through their exchanges, both artists are forcing each other, and by extension, their audiences, to confront uncomfortable truths about identity, authenticity, and creative purpose. Look at how Kendrick's accusations forced Drake to confront his shadow. Questions about cultural authenticity, artistic integrity versus commercial calculation, and the gap between public persona and private behavior. Meanwhile, Drake's responses challenged Kendrick to face his own shadows, potential self-righteousness, the tension between community representation and individual success, and the contradictions within his own moral positioning. I've noticed how this shadow confrontation extends beyond the artists to their fan bases. Kendrick's fans must reckon with questions about perfection and purity tests in art. Drake's fans must consider questions about substance versus style and the spiritual emptiness that can accompany material success. The most powerful aspect of this shadow work isn't the external battle, but the internal integration it demands. For Drake, it creates pressure to reconnect with authentic creative impulses beyond market calculation. For Kendrick, it challenges the potential rigidity of his moral framework and tests whether his truth-telling extends to self-criticism. This shadow integration doesn't happen through polite discourse, but through the intensity of creative conflict. The battle creates an alchemical container where disowned aspects of identity can be confronted, processed, and potentially integrated, not just for the artist, but for the culture they influence. How does this battle create evolutionary pressure on hip-hop culture and beyond? The Kendrick-Drake conflict isn't just transforming two artists, it's generating evolutionary pressure on hip-hop culture and the broader collective consciousness. This represents a fascinating case study in how creative confrontation catalyzes cultural evolution. Think of cultural consciousness as evolving through cycles of tension and resolution, periods of stability disrupted by creative conflict that forces new synthesis. This battle is creating exactly this kind of evolutionary pressure. Consider how the conflict is pushing hip-hop culture to confront its contradictions, the tension between commercial success and artistic integrity, between entertainment and truth-telling, between individual achievement and community responsibility. These aren't new questions, but the intensity and visibility of this battle amplifies them to evolutionary breaking points where new synthesis becomes necessary. What's fascinating is how this evolution manifests in concrete shifts. We see other artists being forced to elevate their lyrical craft in response. We observe audiences developing more sophisticated criteria for elevating or evaluating authenticity. We witness the culture collectively processing questions about what constitutes meaningful artistic contributions beyond commercial metrics. The most significant aspect of this evolution isn't determining who wins the battle, but recognizing how the conflict itself generates evolutionary pressure that benefits the entire culture. The confrontation creates conditions where hip-hop must evolve beyond previous limitations and develop more sophisticated consciousness structures. This cultural evolution extends beyond music to influence broader conversations about authenticity, creative purpose, and the relationship between commercial success and spiritual substance, revealing how artistic conflict can catalyze consciousness evolution far beyond its immediate context. How might this conflict transform both artists and their creative expression? The ultimate significance of the Kendrick-Drake battle lies in its transformative potential for both artists and their creative output. This conflict creates conditions for profound personal evolution that could reshape their artistic expression in unexpected ways. Think of creative identity as requiring periodic death and rebirth. Established patterns must dissolve for new expressions to emerge. This conflict is creating the necessary conditions for exactly this kind of creative transformation. Look at the historical pattern of how artistic confrontation often precedes creative breakthroughs. For Drake, this challenge to his dominance creates pressure to transcend formulaic approaches and reconnect with deeper creative impulses. For Kendrick, the intensity of public scrutiny tests whether his truth-telling can evolve beyond critique to constructive vision. What's most intriguing are the potential transformation paths. Drake could emerge with newfound artistic depth, forged through public humbling, or double down on commercial calculation and lose spiritual connection. Kendrick can evolve his truth-telling into more nuanced wisdom that transcends more moral binaries, or become trapped in self-righteousness that limits his artistic range. I've noticed how this transformative potential extends to their relationship with audience and legacy. Both artists face profound questions about why they ultimately stand for beyond competitive positioning. Questions that could reshape their creative direction and cultural impact for years to come. The most valuable perspective isn't predicting who wins this battle, but recognizing how this conflict itself creates transformative pressure that could elevate both artists beyond their previous limitations. The question isn't whether Kendrick or Drake emerges victorious, but whether each allows this confrontation to catalyze the ego death necessary for creative rebirth. This transformative lens reveals the deeper purpose of artistic conflict, not destruction, but transformation, not dominance, but evolution, not winning, but transcending the limitations that necessitated the battle in the first place. The most valuable perspective isn't predicting who wins this battle, but recognizing how this conflict itself creates transformative pressure that could elevate both artists beyond their previous limitations. The question isn't whether Kendrick or Drake emerges victorious, but whether each allows this confrontation to catalyze the ego death necessary for creative rebirth. This transformative lens reveals the deeper purpose of artistic conflict, not destruction, but transformation, not dominance, but evolution, not winning, but transcending the limitations that necessitated the battle in the first place. The Kendrick Lamar and Drake battle offers a powerful mirror for examining how consciousness evolves through creative confrontation. By understanding this conflict as an archetypal drama of ego death and rebirth, we gain insights not just about two artists, but about the transformative potential of creative conflict itself. The most valuable approach isn't rushing to declare winners and losers, but recognizing how this battle creates conditions for evolution, for the artists themselves, for hip-hop culture, and for our collective understanding of authentic creative expression. This represents a crucial insight about consciousness evolution, that our greatest growth often emerges not through harmony, but through the creative tension that forces integration of previously polarized elements. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this perspective. How do you see this conflict transforming both artists? What aspects of your own consciousness do you notice being triggered or challenged by this battle? Share your insights in the comments below. If this nuanced approach resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time, remember, our most intense conflicts often contain the seeds of our greatest evolution. Stay beautiful, stay discerning, and of course, stay conscious in the field.